And we now switch to the next agenda item, which is a best practice case from Switzerland, entitled The Youth-Friendly Mountain Villages. We are very curious to hear more about that. And our speaker is Vera Ambühl, researcher at Saab and project lead of the Youth-Friendly Mountain Villages. Grüezi to Verena, and we are happy to have you here. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So, hello everybody. As you have heard, I work for the SAB, the Swiss Center of Mountain Regions, and we are an association which represents the interests of the Swiss mountain region on the national level of politics. And I would like to address a warm thank you to CIPRA for the kind invitation to be a guest speaker in this very interesting webinar. My personal migration story is a very unspectacular one. So I grew up in a village 15 minutes away from the Swiss capital, Bern, and that's where I still live today. And I actually still live in the same house. So this is where I've put the head, meaning my job, my everyday life. And then you can see on the map where I spend most weekends and holidays and some home office days. That's in the wonderful Alpine valley called Lower Engadin in the very east of Switzerland, which is where I have put a heart because I would eventually very much like to live there permanently. So my migration story is one to be continued, and I hope it will turn into an in-migration story to a mountain village. Let us now turn to the project which I was invited to present, which is called Youth-Friendly Mountain Villages. What I would like to say first is that last year we were able to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of this project. So that enables us to look back today on quite a large body of experience, which I hope will be of value for you. The starting point for this project was the out-migration of young people from a lot of Swiss mountain villages, the exact same problem that you know from your homelands. And our aim was to really put the young people themselves in the center of this project. And this is why in 2015, we did a survey with kids, adolescents, and parents with young children from different Swiss mountain regions. The results showed that 89% of the respondents enjoy their life in the mountain village. And what is very important is that 75% of the young inhabitants said they could imagine living there also in the future. So from our point of view, the task of the municipalities is to help it make possible to the young people to return after their education to their homeland, to their home village. And yes, it's easier said than done, but it's at least an encouraging point to start from. So the results of the survey led us to set up a label called Youth-Friendly Mountain Villages. Next slide. And the label Youth-Friendly Mountain Villages is a label for municipalities. So on the slide, you can see a map of Switzerland, and the red dots represent all 30 municipalities who carry the label today. So how does the label work? In order to receive the label, a municipality has to fill out a catalog of requirements with different criteria. And these criteria are derived from the priorities and preoccupations that the young people mentioned in the survey in 2015. There are mandatory and optional criteria, and the criteria are quite diverse, ranging from affordable housing to mobility, job opportunities, social cohesion, and leisure opportunities for the young people. If the municipality receives the label, they have to show once a year in a form which measures they have taken over the past 12 months in favor of their young inhabitants. So from the point of view of the municipalities, the label is a visible recognition of their efforts for the youth. It can also raise their attractiveness towards families and new arrivals. And it also serves as an even stronger motivation to take measures for the young people, So very often the label is a catalyst and not the end point of their efforts to tackle outmigration. Next slide, please. So now let us turn our attention to the people for whom the label is for more than anybody else, which is the young people themselves. So a very important element of the label is the Youth Forum. That is the name of the annual assembly in which 1 to 2 young people from each municipality with the label come together. The age range of the young people is quite wide. The members of the Youth Forum are between 15 and 30 years old. So since the number of municipalities who carry the label has grown and grown, a few years ago, a committee of the Youth Forum was set up in which 5 to 9 particularly motivated and dedicated young people get together. So they hold online meetings roughly every 2 months, organize the annual assembly, visit municipalities with the label, etc. And all the work they do is on a voluntary basis. And it is a great pleasure for me that today the president of the Youth Forum, Céline Tralong, she's also among the participants of the webinar. And yeah, I'm sure she's also happy to answer questions after my presentation. If you have questions aimed directly at the young adult at the very heart of this project, and she will also take part in the panel discussion later on. So a very important function of the Youth Forum is that it decides independently whether a candidature of a municipality for the label should be accepted or not. And also the Youth Forum formulates concerns, policy ideas, or other issues of young people living in the mountain regions in position papers and other publications. For the young people, the Youth Forum offers them a network, their first experiences in politics, and also the opportunity to exchange their experiences with young people from other mountain regions, because at least here in Switzerland, we often see similar problems in the different mountain regions, and the Youth Forum allows the young people to learn about different approaches to tackling them. And speaking of youth empowerment, I will quickly return to the criteria a municipality has to fulfill to receive the label. The most important criteria is the dialogue between the authorities and the young people. At least once a year, the authorities of the municipality, they must organize a reunion with one or several of their adolescents or young adults. And then the same young people will participate in the Youth Forum. And in this reunion, they discuss together which measures have been taken over the last 12 months to improve the life of young people in the village and which issues should be addressed in the following year. This form of participation ensures the active involvement of the young people in the development and the shaping of their future in their municipality. And as a result, the young people's connection to their village ideally is strengthened, and therefore outmigration should decrease. So let's change to the next slide. Over the last 10 years, we have seen a wide range of mainly positive outcomes and also some important lessons learned. First of all, the culture of participation and contributing is something that is rarely there straight away. I think it's like a seed of a plant that you plant, and then it takes a lot of time to nurture it and for it to grow. And when the adolescents and young adults experience firsthand that they are taken seriously and that they can change something in their village, their interest to participate and contribute will be strengthened. And that is why it is fundamentally important to meet them as equals and not just talk down to them. And we have interest from municipalities to obtain the label every year, and we have seen many good measures and results, ranging from the setup of a youth consultative body on municipality level to smaller projects like co-working spaces or larger ones like the realization of apartments specifically for young adults. An important lesson learned is that the success of a measure depends heavily on whether the young people had a say in developing it or not. It also has to be said that success in tackling out-migration can mean different things. So receiving the label and developing measures will not solve everything, but it's a clear sign to the population that the authorities have recognized the problem of out-migration and that they are doing something about it by involving the population group that is at the heart of it, which is the young people. And yeah, this is how the belief in a positive future for the village is strengthened in the whole population. I would like to finish my presentation with another very pleasing outcome, which highlights the sustainability of involving young people in politics on a municipal level. We have seen several cases where former participants of the Youth Forum have later on been elected to political office, whether that's in the executive body on the municipal level or the legislative body on the level of the canton. And I think this is a great example of how the voice of the young generation finds its way into politics. I will leave you with a take-home message on the next slide, which comes from a former member of the committee of our youth forum. It basically says when you truly listen to young people and treat them in a serious and fair way, they will get involved in a project and take their future in the mountains in their own hands. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And you also see the link to the website of the label. It's the upper link, and the website exists in German, French, and Italian. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks very much, Vera, for this impressive example from Switzerland with 10 years experience covering various range of topics. And I think in all cases that we heard so far, this issue of taking participation serious and not misusing it as an alibi instrument is very crucial. There have been a number of questions and comments. Maybe, Hannah, you can guide us a little bit through these comments and pick out some that we could answer within the next, we have about 5 minutes of time for discussion.
Yes. Maybe first, a question from Giga. How maybe Vera, you could tell us a little bit more about how the Youth Forum is organized. Can any young person join? The question comes from a personal experience connected to how decisions are made and proposals are made. So how do you ensure that the group remains democratic and everybody has equal voice and not a few people end up making all the decisions?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's an important one. I think first and foremost, the sort of the atmosphere and how you treat the new members of the Youth Forum are important. So we usually get together on a Friday evening in a very light atmosphere, get to know each other, and then on Saturday, the formal assembly takes place. And this way, hopefully everybody will already be a bit comfortable and everybody can speak out. We always encourage the participants, if they have any issues they would like to raise, to say them during the assembly or also write an email or a WhatsApp message before the assembly. And then the Youth Forum is organized, I would say, in a sort of basic democratic way. So you always have votes concerning the publication, like concerning the adoption of publications, and about if it can become undemocratic with a small group taking control. So we do have this committee of the Youth Forum, but the committee always has space for the young people who would like to join it. So I would say it's not really undemocratic. Of course, they take the lead in certain issues, but they are always really open towards new suggestions, new members. Yeah, hope this answers the question. And yes, any young person can join from the municipality with the label. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And of course, as you said in the panel discussion, there will be the possibility to also hear from the other side of participation. There is another very interesting question. Have you evaluated the impact of the label? So is there an effect on the municipalities that receive this label when it comes to out and return migration of young people?
Yes, so we haven't evaluated the impact in a quantitative way in terms of data, but we have a lot of information in a qualitative way. So for example, we have published several publications concerning different criteria, meaning that we have publications which present the best projects from different municipalities in order for the other municipalities to get new ideas, which measures they could take. And we have also seen, I would say, maybe the population data from specific municipalities. One comes to mind where they really were successful in stopping the out-migration, and they actually have a positive number of population. But I think that is, of course, not just down to this label, but I think in this specific municipality, they really have over any issue, they have introduced a participative method. So the population feels really taken care of. And yeah, I think it shows that you really can turn things around.
And is there a reason why there are 19 municipalities in the same canton and there are less labels in other cantons?
That's the canton where our president of the youth forum comes from. So what we can see often is like a snowball effect. So if one municipality receives the label, then the municipalities around there, they start becoming interested as well. And some of them then apply as well. And also in this specific canton, it's Wallis, the responsible person from the canton in the beginning really made an effort to make that label known to the municipalities. And that has also led to an influx of application. Yeah. Yeah.
May I ask a question at the end of this conversation? Many municipalities are facing difficult financial situations at the moment, and we see a tendency in energy regions or other kind of networks that somehow suffer from the situation and lose members, for example. Is this something that already happened to you, or do you see municipalities that are not sure of staying within the network? Is that a topic for you?
Not so much in this sense, because the municipalities, they pay an annual contribution of 400 francs, I think, for the label, which is to cover basically part of my work, the administrative work. So it's not a lot of money, but it's actually good that you mention money, because we have municipalities with the label who are some of the financially weakest in Switzerland. And we also have municipalities with the label who are incredibly rich. And this is why for us it was important that the criteria differ they cover very different issues. Some of them you can resolve without a lot of money, and some of them are costly. Yeah, but we would like to welcome all municipalities. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for your interesting contribution, for all the questions and comments in the Padlet. We are having a break now. It's 10:21. We are perfectly in time, and we be back at 10:30 with two more examples and then go into the panel discussion. Wish you a good break. Take something to drink and eat. Check your mails, but be back at 10:30. Okay, see you. Okay. So we now switch to our second part of the best practice examples. And we have two speakers and start with the first one. And the input is entitled Empowering Local Governance for a Better Quality of Life in the Alps. It's the GOVQoL project. I hope I spelled it right. And we have Lorraine Mosdal as a speaker, and we are very curious about your input. She's from CIPRA France, and yeah, floor is yours, Lauren.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm going to talk about another Interreg Alpine Space project and the link between the local governance of quality of life and youth is what I'm going to develop in this presentation and to give an example of what's going on in one of our pilot territories, especially on youth. But compared to what's been presented so far, just bear in mind our focus isn't only about youth, although it is an important target group, as you will see. So next slide, please. Oh yeah, my migration story. So I live in Grenoble right now, and I come from Grenoble, but I've moved around a bit for my studies. I went to Toulouse, and then I worked in Orléans, and then I worked in Brussels. And so the red line, as we say in French, is that I always wanted to work for climate adaptation and protecting the planet, but I also love European cooperation. And I'm not only saying this because we're in a webinar that's funded by Interreg Alpine Space. And I also love mountains coming from Grenoble. But I could have put another arrow in a dotted line because I'm a bit skeptical about staying in Grenoble in the future, as it is 35 degrees today and we're going towards a 40 degrees this weekend, and that's been every summer for the past 10 years. And so I'm not sure I'm going to continue living here as it impacts my quality of life quite a lot. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. So the next slide is key facts about the GOVQoL project, and I'll be quite quick about it. So we have 5 countries involved in the project, which are Austria, France, Germany, Italy, and Slovenia. And it's a very short project, a bit like Outforing-Gov, it's only 2 years. So we're also heading towards the end of our project at the end of the year. And instead of reading the objectives, I'm rather going to tell you about the origin of the project, which is the 10th report on the state of the Alps, which was published by the Alpine Convention 2 years ago now, and which identified factors contributing to the quality of life of Alpine inhabitants, and also factors that were negatively impacting quality of life. And one of which was the governance. So quality of life in the Alps, in a nutshell, is higher than in the rest of Europe, and mainly because of the natural environment. So that's like the main conclusion of the report, but there's many more, and you can go and find the report online easily. One of the negative factors that impacts quality of life is local governance, that your Alpine inhabitants don't feel very involved in the governance of in governance in general, and since the report was about quality of life. However, what I also wanted to say is to point out the 5 main factors influencing quality of life in the Alps, which are personal health, climate change, family life, career development, and accessibility to infrastructure and services. And to say that a specific analysis was conducted with the youth target group, and that and so I'm just mentioning it because it can be of interest for all of you, and that this career development point was the most impactful for the young people who were interrogated or who responded to the Alpine Convention survey, closely linked between employment and housing, and like how when they found a job there was no housing, or if they found housing there was no job. Like this conjuncture of housing and jobs was really one of the major negative. I had to say, no, I'm lost in my sentence. Anyway, it was a factor that impacted negatively quality of life of young people in the Alps. So anyway, our project deals with bringing this report to the local level, basically. And we're working closely with local administrations. We have 10 pilot territories, and looking at how we can improve governance of quality of life and embed quality of life in long-term policy making, in a nutshell. So next slide, please. And so our starting point is that there's no common governance framework of quality of life in the Alps or in most countries. Actually, it's either included in other policies, such as access to services, or considered as an experiment sometimes. Also, that quality of life is often reduced to the objective perception of quality of life, such as how many people use public transport, how many people have access to internet, how many doctors are implanted in a region for how many thousands of people. Whereas quality of life is both is the sum of objective perceptions and subjective perceptions. And you can't talk about quality of life without asking people how they feel about where they live. And that's important to know, because we can't we can't only analyze quality of life through objective indicators. And however, there is an objective indicator which is that there's a low level of public participation in policymaking. Generally, that's an average. When you look closely at different countries in the Alps, different regions, it can vary from, I don't know, in the latest national election, for instance, it can go from 50% of participants to 80%. So there's a large variability too. This is an average over the Alpine area. And so what we decided to do, since we wanted to bring the RSA 10, so the 10th report on the state of the Alps, to the local level, was to work with pilot territories in a classic manner with a focus group methodology. And so we're going to design roadmaps to improve governance of quality of life locally with an objective like for the next 10 years. And they're all going to feed it into an Alpine roadmap. And so today I want to talk about the case of the Regional Natural Park of Baronnie-Provençale, which was one of our pilot territories, and what they do for youth, and also what are the limits of the experiments they've conducted. And yeah, the next slide. Before I go into the pilot territory, I wanted to quote how, when you're not in a youth focused project, but you know probably all of this, how youth is mentioned or considered. So we did a first workshop at the beginning of our GOVQoL project, and we were wondering about target groups, about key messages, about what we're going to do during the project. And so I just extracted some quotes, some of what people said. And so, for instance, that to improve quality of life locally, it is the mobility solutions are really important. So it's recurrent, like mobility and youth are always linked in all the different focus groups we've held and all the different pilot territories. That it's important to consider youth as a specific target group. So but it doesn't go any further. It's like, we know it's important, but how do we do? People tend to say that youth projects contribute to community activation, community vibrancy, life, etc. Involving youth in policymaking is important, which is also being said today. And that, what I mentioned at the beginning, that apart from access to work and working conditions and mobility, nature conservation is an important criteria for good quality of life for youth as for the rest of the population. So they overlap quite closely, except that working conditions and housing is much more predominant in the youth group. And the next slide. So what happens in the Baronnie-Provençale? So just so you know, it's a natural regional park, which is, I think, a French organization. So there's 104 municipalities in the park. So don't be afraid. Municipalities in France are way smaller than in most European countries. And so that's why 104 is okay. Because sometimes there's only 60 inhabitants or 100 inhabitants in a municipality. They've been quoted as an example for the past 15 years now. And they even had an employee entirely devoted to the topic of including young people. A European project on the topic, etc. But we've kind of come to the observation in the GOVQoL project that they've lost track of how to work with the young people, and that now when they try to work with young people, in the case, for instance, of renewing their charter, because a natural regional park has a charter that guides their actions, and so every 15 years you have to renew it. Well, only their interns actually came to the focus group. So there's a bit of a problem there in knowing how to attract and to want to motivate young people to come and work in the focus group of the park. And so they asked GOVQoL, like they wanted to participate in the GOVQoL project as a pilot territory for us to support them with the youth involvement. And what we've been able to do is like support them and give some time to support engaging young people because they don't have this employee anymore. And we've been able to prove that young people want to come back. But apart from that, what we've noticed is that the link is broken between the park and organizations that are used to working with youth and with young people, such as, I don't know, youth centers, our schools, our universities, and that this link is broken and it can't really be on us to repair it, but at least it's on their roadmap for the next 10 years to rebuild this link. And I'm going to be quite fast because my time is up. So the next slide with our 3 tips, which are, well, I think maybe not very new, but in any case, they're rooted in this case study and in the project we've been working on. So it's to adapt participation methods to the target group, which you know, but I would really emphasize on rely on youth-oriented organizations, and it's quite separate. Like working on quality of life is breaking down all the silos, and because quality of life is transversal, and very often services that work with access, organizational services, like when you're in charge of access to public service or of health, you don't ask schools or youth organizations for their inputs. And so quality of life is a nice way of putting a more transversal way of working in the process. Then what we learned from the Baronnie Provençale is that you need to plan for proper financial and human resources to coordinate and to just properly take care of a target group that is deemed as important by everyone. It can't be spontaneous. And the third tip, and I'm really happy that we're having this panel afterwards with the USALP Youth Council, is to ensure representativeness, because of course there's not one young person, but lots of different profiles, and it's not enough to have 1 or 2 interns from the park to work on the youth their issues. And so I'd like to quote here, like to cite the criteria grid that is used for the USALP Youth Council, where they try to ensure representativeness in the 4 young people who are the 4 young people per country who form the USALP Youth Council. And my time is up. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lauren, for your overview on this project that has, I think, very interesting links to the AlpGov project, as you already said. And again, the striking point, I think, is what you said, that one of the negative governance points is that people do not feel involved or not seriously involved. And it brings us again back to the question of serious and professional participation in structures, and how to can become active and also to have an impact on the territory where you live. We will hear more than, I think, in the panel discussion about that, and switch now directly to the second example of this after break session. It is entitled Policy Tools to Attract Talents in the Region Facing Brain Drain. It's called Talent S43 project, and I'm happy to have Lucila Castro Rovillar. I hope I spelled your name at least close
Perfect.
to the end okay. And the floor is yours, Lucila.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invitation to participate in this webinar. My name is Lucila Castro, and I'm a project manager at Fundesit Science and Technology Park of Extremadura in Spain. But in fact, I was born and raised in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Oh.
But I've been living in Spain for over 20 years now, and as every Argentinian, I'm the product of a society built by immigrants, mainly Spanish and Italian, but also people of many other nationalities who shaped the country I come from. So this is quite an interesting webinar for me as well, for many other reasons. Today I would like to share some reflections from the Talent for 3 project on how governance can become a key driver for talent attraction and retention policies, particularly in regions facing demographic challenges and brain drain. And the presentation is based on the experience of the project and on several good practices identified across Europe, especially in Emilia-Romagna region in Italy, Lithuania, and Extremadura, the region I'm living in. Next slide, please. So why talent matters? Talent has become one of the most strategic resources for regional development. And when we talk about smart specialization strategies, we often focus on technology, innovation, infrastructure, or investments. However, none of these elements can generate any impact without people. So researchers, entrepreneurs, engineers, highly skilled professionals are the ones who transform knowledge into innovation and innovation into economic growth. And therefore, for many European regions, attracting and retaining talent is no longer a complementary objective, but it's becoming a prerequisite for competitiveness. Next slide, please. So about the project, this is precisely the context in which Talent Forestry project is being implemented. This is an Interreg Europe project in which 8 regions from Europe are collaborating together. The project brings together these regions that share a common objective, that is improving public policy related to talent attraction, development, retention, and skills anticipation. And through interregional learning and exchange of good practices, the project helps regions to identify new approaches that can improve their own policy instruments. One of the most interesting findings has been that despite the significant differences that might be between regions, many talent-related challenges are remarkably similar among each other. Next slide, please. So across the partnership, we identify a number of recurring challenges. Brain drain continues to affect many territories. Demographic decline is reducing the available workforce. Companies increasingly report difficulties in finding specialized skills. And at the same time, many talent initiatives remain fragmented and disconnected from one another. Another important challenge is that the lack of reliable intelligence and data about future skills needs is a major problem in the regions, and as a result, many policies tend to react to problems after they emerge rather than anticipating them, and this led us to a quick key question, which is what distinguishes regions that are more successful in attracting and retaining talent. And next slide, please. And well, we believe that the answer is governance, because many regions already have scholarships, incentives, training programs, or recruitment initiatives. But the problem is not necessarily the absence of actions, but the problem is the absence of coordination among actions. So successful talent policies require shared vision, strong institutional cooperation, stakeholders engagement, and continuous monitoring. Governance transforms individual projects into a coherent talent ecosystem, and this is one of the most valuable lessons emerging from the Talent Forestry project. Next slide, please. So one of the most inspiring examples that we analyzed from in the project is one that comes from Emilia-Romagna region. Rather in the Emilia-Romagna region, Italy, rather than implementing isolated initiatives, the region decided to establish a comprehensive governance framework through a regional law, the Law 2023. This framework connects regional authorities, ARTER, which is the Regional Development Agency, Innovation and Development Agency, universities, municipalities, innovation clusters, and companies around a common objective. What is particularly interesting is that talent is treated as a strategic regional policy closely linked to innovation policies, competitiveness, and smart specialization. And in this framework, the region created both a talent committee and a regional observatory, as well as a manifesto that coordinates all these activities, ensuring again, coordination and evidence-based decision-making. Next slide, please. One practical example of this governance model in Emilia-Romagna is the ITER initiative. The idea behind this this initiative is simple but powerful. It's that international talent often faces administrative, social, practical barriers when moving to a new region, and ITR provides a single entry point where students, researchers, highly skilled professionals can access information, can access support services and networking opportunities through more than 60 services offered in English, local contact points, an ambassador network, etc. The program helps talent not only to arrive, but also to integrate into the region, into the regional ecosystem. So the key lesson here is that attraction and retention are closely connected in Emilia-Romagna region, and in the end, people stay where they feel supported and connected. Next slide, please. A second example, also from Emilia-Romagna region, is the skills intelligence instrument. One of the weaknesses identified in many regions is the limited capacity to anticipate future skills needs. And so skills intelligence addresses this challenge by combining labor market data, recruitment information, forecasting tools, and stakeholder consultations. The objective of this tool is to understand what skills will be needed tomorrow, not only what skills are missing today. And this allows policymakers, universities, training providers, and so on to make better informed decisions. So again, good governance depends on good intelligence, and without evidence, talent policies risk becoming reactive rather than strategic policies. And next slide, please. And another point of view that I want to bring today is from Extremadura. In Extremadura, one particularly interesting example is the Iberian Center for Research in Energy Storage. the center illustrates how a flagship of a scientific infrastructure can become a catalyst for talent attraction, because beyond its scientific mission of this research center, it is helping to create a critical mass around a strategic sector in Extremadura and in Spain in general, attract international researchers, and strengthen collaboration with companies. Today, researchers and professionals from many different countries are already involved in the project, and the lesson here is that infrastructures do more than generate research. They can also generate an ecosystem, dynamize it, and help regions to become more competitive. Next slide, please. The last example I want to bring is Lithuania, is from Lithuania, and how they deal with their diaspora. Instead of focusing exclusively on attraction of talent, Lithuania has invested heavily in reconnecting with its diaspora. The country understands that that talent does not stop contributing to the country simply because it lives abroad. Through initiatives such as Bring Together Lithuania, Work in Lithuania, and international house buildings, the country maintains long-term relationships with the highly skilled Lithuanians living abroad. So the objective here is not only return, it is also collaboration, knowledge exchange, and talent circulation. So this approach transforms brain drain into what we call now brain circulation. Next slide, please. To finish, because I think I'm pretty much on time, and based on all these experiences, we can point out three main lessons. First, governance before programs. Second, intelligence before interventions. And third, ecosystems before isolated actions. The most successful regions are not necessarily those investing in the most resources, but they are often the regions that are best able to connect institutions, businesses, universities, and talent around a shared vision. So, to conclude, the main lessons from the Talents for the Three project is very simple. Talent policies are not only about attracting people, they are about also creating governance systems capable of making talent stay, grow, and contribute to regional transformation. That's it from my side. Thank you very much for your attention and for the invitation today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Lucilla, for this very interesting insights, also from countries outside the Alpine arc. So I think, as we have heard in the very beginning, also from the example from Vesoul, it's mainly a problem of rural areas in competition with the agglomerations. So if Alpine or not is maybe not the most crucial case. And thanks also for again stressing the governance topic, involvement questions, coordination issues. I think this will also guide us a little bit then in the panel discussion. Before we come to that, we have the opportunity to have some questions and feedbacks from the Padlet. Maybe if you have not put your questions yet there, you can still do that. They can be answered also aftermath. But Hannah, what have you found interesting in the comments so far? We could maybe take one question or comment for each of the two examples, and then we switch to the panel.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I welcome all the speakers to then in the Padlet answer the questions that are not that we are not able to discuss now. So to Lauren, there is a question about the outcomes, since the project is still not closed and there are many activities in development. How do you make sure that the roadmaps that you develop in the project will continue and will actually generate real pressure on decision makers? How would you make sure that all of that is
It's a
applied?
real question. But I also saw the other question about the participation methods, and they kind of link because we've been working on a handbook of like a kind of, yeah, a methodology of how municipalities can involve citizens and trying to train them with new tools and procure networking between pilot territories so that they can learn from each other. But indeed, we don't have any control about what happens at the end of the project, but that's the same with, I think, lots of different projects. And when a territory wants to become a pilot territory, usually it's that they have a strategy behind, or they're lacking, like they have the political will, but they're lacking the resources, and so they use the project as a starter. All countries are a bit different, but if I speak for the case of France, it was really hard to find pilot territories because there was the municipal elections in the middle of the project, which didn't help. And so the 2 pilot territories who chose to become pilots, I think they're really motivated because they overcame that obstacle of changing mayor in the middle of the 2-year project. But it depends a bit on the country. And once, maybe a last item is, once you've formed a group of citizens and stakeholders who are interested in a project, it's an informal rule, but it's kind of complicated to let them down and to abandon this group in the middle of something. So maybe if they don't go to the end of the 10-year project, the 10-year roadmap, that's not surprising, but I suspect it's going to continue at least a year or two because you can't really let down this group that got involved.
Thank you, Lauren. I think it's as you said, a general challenge, right, of all projects to make sure that what we developed then is continued after the project end. Right, and then to Lucila, one question would be if the project tackled only highly skilled workers, because when it comes to many regions, many mountainous regions, there is currently a lack of trade workers and similar profiles who are in more vulnerable position due to lower income, lesser job stability. What is your opinion on that?
Yes, well, the project, because of the nature of the project and the nature of the partners involved in the project, it's pretty much focused on how to better implement the smart specialization strategies at regional level, and that is why we are focusing mainly in highly skilled professionals. But in any case, the good practices that we are identifying in the different regions can be implemented either for highly skilled people or for other kind of talents. Of course, all of them equally important, and all of them evidently are necessary. I mean, in presentation, I was talking about highly skilled people, talent, because of the nature of the project. But for instance, many of the examples I gave about the diaspora in Lithuania are focused on any kind of talent. And in any case, governance models can be applied in a much more horizontal way. So I think these examples can be like an inspiration for any kind of policies or instruments related to young talent or any kind of talent in any level of either if it's more skilled or less skilled. I mean, I think governance has this characteristic of being able to work in a much more horizontal way.
Okay, thanks a lot for the questions and also for the answers. And